Whenever they extend a franchise story, we need to ask ourselves, is this worth it, alright? And I'm here to tell you guys that I'm upset. I am upset with how freaking good this show is, alright? Let's go. Before we kick off this review, my name is Chris and thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it if you hit that like button, and if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. This way you'll stay up to date with more fun reviews uploaded weekly. This is a spoiler-free review, and I'm going to try to give some background about the story as best as I can, alright? But don't get confused with the names because they all sound very similar. Try to keep up, alright? Here we go. So the series starts off explaining how King Jaehaerys Targaryen is dying after the first century of the Targaryen dynasty comes to a close. Those days, House Targaryen was at its full strength with 10 adult dragons and absolutely no power could stand against them. Now usually with the passing of the crown, it would go to the eldest son. However, this king has 2 sons, but unfortunately they died. So now he has to choose a new successor with the help of the Great Council. They narrowed it down to his eldest granddaughter, Princess Rhaenys Targaryen, and her younger cousin, Prince Viserys Targaryen, who was the king's eldest male descendant. Now since Rhaenyra is a woman, she never ended up inheriting the Iron Throne, and now the new king would be Viserys Targaryen. Keep in mind that King Jaehaerys ruled the kingdom for over 60 years, and that alone is a massive achievement. He called the Great Council to prevent a war from being fought over his succession, and he always knew the truth. The only thing that could tear down the House of the Dragon was itself. Foreshadowing all day. Let's go. You already know what's bound to happen in this show. That quick backstory that I gave you guys is literally 2 minutes word for word of how the show starts off. And as you're watching it, it definitely sets that dramatic tone. Now apparently this TV series is only a very small portion of the actual book that author George R.R. Martin wrote called Fire and Blood. So far this first season is showing us what happened 200 years before the Game of Thrones took place, and we're mainly focused on the rule of the Targaryen family. Now the family tree of House Targaryen is very interesting and confusing, but pretty much I think this series will lead all the way up to the death of the Mad King, Aerys, who ended up having a daughter who is Princess Daenerys Targaryen, which we all recognize from the Game of Thrones. But I could be wrong about that if they end up doing other spin-off series. But if I'm right about that, then this show could cover around 200 years of the Targaryen family, which is not looking so good for them right now. Each episode, you can see the tension building between the family members, and meanwhile at the center of it all, you have King Viserys, who's trying to hold his family together and the entire kingdom. This character goes through so much heartbreak and struggle, but through all that pain, he still managed to do his best to keep the peace amongst everyone. Actor Paddy Considine is truly the heart of the show and gives a brilliant performance. George R.R. Martin even called Paddy to let him know that his portrayal of the character is even way better from the character that he wrote in his own book. Now in the world of Westeros, if you know Game of Thrones, when it comes to politics, right? Everyone has their own idea of leadership and conquering, and some are more impatient and ruthless than others. One character specifically is King Viserys' brother, Daemon. This actor, Matt Smith, really steals the show and automatically becomes a fan favorite. Their relationship between the brothers is very special because although they have so many differences, their loyalty is unmatched. Now, Viserys is having difficulty having sons to pass the crown down, but he does have daughters. His eldest daughter, Princess Rhaenyra, has very strong qualities as a leader, even as a minor. You then start to see the cycle slowly repeat when it comes to politics and families in regards to the succession of the House of Targaryen. And this is when you see the Game of Thrones really start to take shape, because although King Viserys would love to hand it down to his daughter, he is struggling to hear the consequences from the kingdom and his brother, who also has strong desires to rule. Then there's this whole other main plot of Princess Rhaenyra's childhood best friend Alicent Hightower, which their relationship is the center of the entire storyline. Okay, that's all I can say for now because everything after that is definitely in spoiler territory. But so far I really enjoyed this first season because of how the story structure is. They only focus on several characters, and when a story is able to show this much depth for each characters, that's how you hook the audience and enjoy the ride of watching these characters grow. There's no crazy distractions with the story like how Game of Thrones had with so many different houses at the forefront, plus no big mentions of the White Walkers or Winter is Coming shenanigans. I almost regret actually saying that because for many viewers, there are definitely a few huge distractions when it comes to new actors being shown on the screen. The first season does not hesitate to move up the storyline, and when you think about it, they kind of have to if they really want to cover up this vast history of the Targaryen family. Many fans were annoyed because you'll fall in love with a character, right? Like a child actor, for example. But then out of nowhere, the next episode, that child actor is gone, and now they have an older character with a somewhat older actress playing that character. And this actually happened several times throughout the season. The obvious example is for Rhaenyra and Alicent, because for a few episodes, they were children, but then midway through the season, they fast forward the timeline and had new actresses playing the characters for adults with their own children. Now their own children switch actors like 3 times since the kids grow faster. Now this leaves most of the audience very confused and frustrated, because although I wasn't frustrated, I really start to enjoy watching Millie Alcock play teenage Rhaenyra. So now they switch her out with actress Emma D'Arcy, who I immediately become a fan of with how much drama and depth she brought to her acting performance. And here's my opinion for the time jumps. I agree that they were very random, but it's also definitely necessary for the story that they're trying to tell. And they also mention how going forward in upcoming seasons, there won't be any more crazy time jumps. But now me, I was okay with these time jumps because I was expecting them. At the end of every episode, they show you a quick preview of what the next week's episode will be. Now, every episode was an absolute banger. I mean, I was very excited to watch the next week, so I couldn't help myself to get a sneak peek. But for most viewers, they probably never watched the preview, therefore, I completely understand the frustration and confusion. Now, although they switched out so many actors in this first season, each actor was on their A game for their performance. The Game of Thrones franchise is a highly dramatized series, so these characters are very complex, and therefore the acting has to reflect that naturally. Some other positives about this show is that the CGI of the dragons looked fantastic. Now, the music was pretty decent too, because although the score was very subtle, it was still also very powerful with the dialogue. Oh yeah, with the dialogue, oh my god, y'all, like the dialogue of this first season is just like Game of Thrones, I'm telling you. The screenwriting, every single line has a purpose and an impact. They don't waste time on any random conversation or side plot. And the cinematography and color tone was also very impressive with the few locations that they were filming. However, just like Game of Thrones, there were a few scenes in this first season where it was very dark. So if you're at home with the lights on, it was probably difficult to see what's on screen. And that wasn't really a big deal for me, but what's more of a personal issue was how realistic this show is. I mean, you have to remember what type of show you're watching. And Game of Thrones, House of Dragons, they don't hesitate to remind you of what type of M-rated mature show that you're watching. Brief spoiler, but there are 2 scenes where you literally see an abortion take place, such as a miscarriage or a stillbirth, and you see like the whole thing. It's not only extremely graphic and gruesome, but it's tragic and sad. I mean, all that blood and that detailed sound, like if you had headphones in, that's not for me. But I always appreciate the realism when it comes to the art. And I gotta remind myself, like we're living in a day of technology where they just have the advancements to make this shit look so real. But before we close up this review, I wanted to give you guys my top 10 favorite characters from this first season, from least to most. And I want to also do another top 10 list of the most funniest memes. In conclusion, I went into this series with low expectations, expecting a basic prequel spin-off to a classic show, but boy was I wrong. House of the Dragon has sparked a conversation of pop culture, as did Game of Thrones did, with viewers excited to watch the next week's episode. If a series can create that much excitement for anticipation of the next week's episode, then the cast and crew has truly done their job and created magic. I highly recommend watching this first season because this series could definitely be something special.
What is this brief mortal life, if not the pursuit of legacy? History does not remember blood, it remembers names.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. And if you want to see more, just subscribe. If you want notifications for new uploads, hit that bell icon. Also, if you could share this video with your family and friends, I would greatly appreciate it. Let me know some of your favorite memes or characters from my top 10 list, and also let me know how you felt about the show in general down in the comments. And thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one. Peace.